This story takes place in London in 1841. She was 14 years old. But in that young life, she had already experienced hell. She'd never known her father, and life with her mother had been one long, slow descent into alcoholism and other kinds of abuse. It was almost a relief 2 years ago when her mother died. But that left her on her own and left her at the mercy of the largesse of strangers. Sometimes they were kind, but oftentimes they were in it for their own making. And now, as the days turned cold and the wind was bitter, the largesse of strangers left her hungry and homeless and pregnant. At first, that wasn't much of an issue. When it was early enough on that nothing showed, no one could tell. But by the time she began to present, she noticed the looks. The looks of the society people as they traveled down the street. Some gave her wide berth. Others made sure she was the one who had to move out of the way. And some, in fact, gave her a thump on the way, as if to say, you should know better. One particular day, late on, she felt like there must be an end to things soon. There just must be. When this dark-clothed, stern-faced woman slapped her hard, just out of the blue, knocked her into the street, into the filth that was on the cobblestones. She sank down. She began to sob. For all that life should be but hadn't been. For all the things she should have had that she saw other girls her age receive that were denied and taken from her. For all of the abuse, physical and otherwise, that she had felt. She cried in the street, softly at first, but her voice raising until she was just wailing and screaming and out of control. She didn't remember the hands that took a hold of her. She didn't remember the wagon that they sent her in. She didn't remember the bumpy ride over the cobblestones to the street until they stopped in front of a large brick building. When she finally kind of came to. And she said, "Where have you taken me?" And the gruff old carter simply grumbled, "Bedlam Hospital, Mum." Bedlam. The place they took the people they didn't know what to do with. And now they took her there. Soon a couple of nurses came out and took her from the wagon into the hospital. She was surprised to find out that they told her she was in labor. They took her ragged clothing off and put a large nightshirt over her. One night, the nurses set her up on the birthing chair. One nurse held her around the shoulders as the labor set on in earnest. The pains racking her by turn with little moments of rest in between. Her labor screams blending in with the screams of madness because Bedlam Hospital was the only place for mental patients in those days. Finally, after what seemed like forever, a doctor came in to take control. He looked at the situation, didn't seem too concerned, and after a couple of more rounds of labor, he caught that little baby, gave it to the nurses who cleaned off its bloody little body, but it seemed healthy and whole, and there didn't seem to be any reason for concern. And the doctor smiled, a not unkind but little wry smile, and said, "Well, that's a friendly bit of irony tonight." The confusion in her eyes asked the question for her. She wondered what the irony was. And he came and knelt down beside her and said very gently, well, you know, this is Christmas Eve, a night when we remember another little boy untimely born. And she said, but why here? Why is that ironic here? And he said, do you know where you are? She said, yes, they told me. They took me to Bedlam. He says, oh, that's right. But you see, Bedlam isn't the proper name of this hospital. Bedlam is what they call it on the street. The proper name for this hospital is Bethlehem Royal Hospital. Your baby boy was born on Christmas Eve at Bethlehem. And maybe, just maybe, this might be a sign for us too of the gift of peace. And it's true that in Cockney slang, Bethlehem became Bedlam. And for us, Bedlam is a word that means chaos and confusion and uproar. And it's a good reminder on this Christmas Eve, at what I hope is the end of this crazy season, that Christ is born in Bedlam, in Bethlehem, in the most unlikely of places and the unexpected of times. That when we find ourselves out of control, when we find ourselves in Bedlam, fear not, for that is where Christ is born.